Sure.
All right, so go ahead.
All right. Good morning, everyone, again. To start with, I just want to talk a little bit about the history of me or the relationship with disability. I grew up with two brothers with disability. One is physical, one is mental and physical. And I never imagined like I'm gonna be working with people with disability. I always like to just volunteer and being only with family. But eventually, when I came here to the United States about 6 years ago, I started in this field and just continue to progress from just a caregiver to managers to administrator to assistant director, which is my last job. That was assistant director for Maryland programs to serve people with disabilities. American Disability Services started back in February 21. That was like beginning of COVID. I have Sophia Allaire here on the call. We started talking about it, and we started in the midst of COVID-19 at the very beginning. The organization, like in the past 16 months, all I do is just collecting paper and requirements for the government, and I can't emphasize enough on how much I struggle with funding the business, because anything you do with filing, preparation for articles or any other documents I have to pay for it, and all that comes from me as I'm working as an employee. So that's the main issues. When I contacted with the nonprofit village, that was like my main concern, that I am not able even to take an office. I was looking for an office, and I can't afford it. Like I end up using my home address for the company. So after this 16 months of just working on the requirements, I submit my applications to the state of Maryland to review. As we all know, like familiar with nonprofit, it takes a lot of time, the process of licensing and starting and getting an approval. So I do have four main questions I can share with you. So the first thing I have concerned about, like I don't have enough knowledge on how to develop a fundraising plan, how to start, where to start. I do need help with it. The second point is developing a comprehensive business strategy to sustain successful business operation. I do need help with how to measure the day-to-day operation on the success of the day operation. If you have any tools, resources, any recommendations, that I really appreciate it. The third point I have is that how to create a healthy environment to make sure that all people incorporate and work together for nonprofit. As we all know, there's a lot of pressure that you have to prove the social impact of the purpose of the organizations in order even like to do anything. And in addition to that, there's a pressure on the employees working on a profit, which is they receive less average salary than other profit or other sector. The fourth point, which is the last point, is that if there is any tools, resources would help with how to share experience and knowledge in the knowledge of the sector, purpose of the company, with employees, with people who just fresh graduate from school, and with the communities as well. How to share that experience. We all know when we work in nonprofit, I mean, this is like my opinion, just you have to wear multiple hats in order for you to function in a nonprofit. There's a lot of tasks that merge together in order to operate. I think that's all. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, great. So let's start with Justin today on this one. Justin, any comments?
Great, Zakaria, thank you for sharing that, and Sophie, welcome too. I was just wondering if you could share a little bit, because the piece that we may not have a full picture on is the body of work that you're looking to do. You talked about, that business strategy and the social impact. So if you could share with us a little bit of, based on your personal experience, what's the purpose of the organization, and in what way are you serving the community?
Okay. We align with the purpose of the DDA, Developmental Disability Administration. The main purpose is to integrate people with developmental disability, integrate them into the community. So instead of them living in a shelter or like as a group, like 20, 25 persons just live in one facility, the goal is to make them, have them live in a community with just the normal day-to-day people, have jobs for them, and have someone who's supporting them and improve their independency.
And what is sort of the mechanism? Because again, you sort of talked about the day-to-day and thinking about evaluating that. If you could just shed a little bit of light, just so we have a sense of, you know, what does a day in the life look like in terms of what you're doing for those folks and the work of the organization?
Sure. So this one depends on the need for each individual, but I will give examples on that. So if someone has only medical need, which is need like equipment with like a wheelchair, you just need somebody to assist them physically to help them to operate just a daily life, which is like a cooking, do shopping, maybe take medications, going to the park. This is one part. The other is just someone who has behavior, which is there's a behavior plan, and we will be working with the psychologist and psychiatric if they take medications, and we implement the behavior plan. It's just like the Hawaii treatment plan. But it's not like a normal person where you just go complete the treatment plan for 8 weeks or 1 year. This one is ongoing because mental illness is not going to just, you know, they're not going to heal from the mental illness. We have to manage their behavior and just work with them. So there is a system. I am an instructor of mandate system. So which is we train the individuals, or we train the employees how to manage the behavior and how to even manage yourself, because it's sometimes a lot of individual get frustrated when we deal with someone, let's say, have a bipolar, which their mood changing every 5 minutes. So I hope this answers your question.
It does, and I think I will certainly lead others to the storytelling component of it, because I think there's a lot there. But one thing I appreciated was the fact that you know, you talked about thinking about that healthy environment. So I do come from that space of really being values oriented, and obviously your personal experience, this idea of people living with and experiencing disabilities, not only those who are directly experiencing them, but also the other people who are affected, and how it is something, and the idea that you're talking about of ensuring people feel integrated into the world and are supported in relationship to that. I think that is those sets of values and being able to communicate them, you know, are really a strong foundational component to the work you're doing. And it sounds like that's a driving force for you, as opposed to just the mechanics of helping provide support. So I think being able to frame that is really important, because that set of values of people feeling supported, of people being able to navigate their day-to-day, also applies to your staff. What you talked about of sort of that internal staffing, healthy working environment, using those same ideas of how you think people should be experiencing their lives, you just mirror that inside your organization. But it sounds like you have a strong foundation for that. But again, I will defer to some of the others around the resource and the storytelling components.
Zakaria, this is Lewis. I want to give you credit for acknowledging and recognizing the areas where that you mentioned cautions or challenges, where you mentioned a fundraising plan, you mentioned business strategy and operations, and a healthy environment. So credit to you for recognizing areas where you want to focus in on. Are there others that you have on your team, either as employees, as advisors, who are working with you to provide guidance in some of these areas? And maybe if you can expand on that a bit.
So at this stage of the business, I only have people whose friends, coworkers just participate with me. We haven't hire anyone yet. I'm awaiting right now for the approval for my license to be able to operate. But pretty much it's just this is the last stage I am in. In terms of people like we hire before they start working or providing care to individuals, there is a set of training that I have to provide it for them. But in my opinion, experience, those training that we provide, I think there is something needs to be done more than just training to create the healthy environment. I don't know what it is. That's what I am really seeking the answer for.
And when you mentioned in terms of the services and the training, on your website, you had listed a number of different services. Is there a specific niche or a specific focus that you're targeting, and then considering also working with others in terms of providing referrals to you?
Currently, so I'm aiming to provide non-residential, which is we provide in the care in the client's home. Later, eventually, is going to be where I open the facilities, which is all home or apartments, it's just for them to live in. That's the main focus. But at this point, it's just like non-residential. That's the main focus.
Lynn?
Wow. Thank you so much for working in this field. This is a really needed field. You already know, through your own experience, there's never enough. There's just never enough people. There's never enough supply. So thank you for working in this field. I kind of want to echo Lewis. It is really hard to start a business. It's really hard. But here's the good news. You can learn this. You can learn this. The base stuff, which is like what you want to do in your business, you already know. You've been doing it for years. But now you just need to learn the business side, and you can learn that. And there's a lot of support for you. Before I launch into what some of that support is, are you still working at Frontline?
No longer working Frontline.
Okay.
The story I can tell later, maybe, but I'm no longer working.
Okay. This is probably a story for another time, but if there's a legal issue there, it's something you're going to need to deal with now, as opposed to later. Okay, we won't get into that because if there is, and hopefully there's not, but if there is, got to deal with it now. Some supports for you in learning some of this, some pretty cool things. There's actually, are you familiar with the National Disability Institute? No? Okay. So that's nationaldisabilityinstitute.org, and we're recording this, and Lily's writing things down, so we'll get that email address to you. That long lists of resources for people with disabilities. But the coolest thing about them right now is they just got a $2 million grant from the Federal Small Business Administration to start a small business hub for people with disabilities and disability services organizations like yours. If it were me, I would run, not walk, to that hub, kind of figuratively, since it's online. It's disabilitysmallbusiness.org. So that's disability, singular, small business, singular.org. I would absolutely head there and take a look. They got this grant to assist businesses in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Full confession, Montgomery County Economic Development, my agency, we're a partner with them on that. So there's a lot of resources there. Another place to learn some of the most base. Have you written a business plan yet?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yay. So it just sounds like you've started one, but there's a lot of there are pieces of it that, as you said, sort of that operations day to day, the finance piece that are a little vague. So Nonprofit Village will help you with some of that. But I think that it's probably worth it for you to talk to the Maryland Small Business Development Center. It's sbdcmd.org, I believe, but we'll get that to you. But it's Maryland Small Business Development Center. They do a lot of good basic coaching and counseling on filling in those gaps. And I think that will be very, very helpful to you. By the way, they're free. Oh, by the way, everything I've talked about so far is free. I'm all about free resources. And if anybody's, I mean, there's a lot of great paid resources out there, but exhaust the free ones first. There's a lot of us. So we're one as well. So I think there are a lot of free resources. We can give them to you all day long. And then it becomes up to you to integrate that. So there is a lot of help out there. I don't want to take up everybody, all time, but that's just a good place to get started. Some of the other things I noted, let's see. It seemed, I'm not sure that you know all of the disability resources in Montgomery County. Are you familiar with the Montgomery County Commission on People with Disabilities? Okay, they do, they have a directory called the Montgomery County Disability Network directory. So when you get up and running, you get yourself listed in the directory. That's a way to start. But I think you should get really familiar with all of the other resources for the disabilities community, some of which will apply and some of which will not. In the county, Lewis suggested something about referrals. And I think this is something you're going to really have to think about. The vast majority, I think, of your clients will come from referrals. I think. I mean, is that your previous experience?
The way it's not referral, it's more of they have to be eligible to the DDA services in order for them to be to receive the services. There is a lot of people are on waiting list, and there is a lot of individuals, family, have no idea how to start, where to start. So willing to provide that help to people how to start, but there's a long list in DDA, and there's not enough providers to provide these services. Yeah.
So you would basically be added to the list of providers, and then would receive the names of those individuals who are on waiting lists through some.
I won't see the people on the waiting list because they are in the waiting list to be eligible, and then once they are like eligible, but sometimes if there is somebody in the waiting list, there's maybe somebody behind you, but they have like their life at risk, or maybe they lost their home, they have nobody to take care of them, they will be first. So it's not like first come first serve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emergencies come first.
Yes.
So I'm going to take a break right now because I want to let Minh talk. But at some point, if we have time today, we need to talk about kind of what the general financial model of this is. But Minh, I'll back off and give you time.
Anytime. So so it's kind of funny because you mentioned business, right? And a lot of like in my work professionally, I've seen a lot of nonprofits. They think they have to operate in a business sense in order to bring in money. At the end of the day, it's still the operations, right? And it's still you have to create a plan to get your donors, and then continue to nurture that relationship with people. And that's where I come in with a lot of nonprofits, and they realize that they have to understand, where to, because at the end of the day, we all have 24 hours in a day, no one have more. And what can we really strategize your strength, your team and things like that to really focus on what make the most impact, right? Just the same thing with communication and marketing. There's a million different ways you can tell your story, like every day, like, if you read the news, like new technology come out, Instagram, TikTok, and all those things. But what I always recommend people to do is that really focus on the thing that make the most money, most impact. What can you do with your only like 20% of your effort and still create that 80% result, right? So whether it's to referral, getting more clients, explaining who you are to them versus, having like, waiting for like a website, like a big website, waiting all those things, right? If you focus on the one that make the most impact for your organizations, I think that's where you can build from that, right? Build up momentum, getting more team members to align with your visions. And then as you go through it, you will get more resources, and then you'll be able to bring in more people, right? And then by doing more people, then you have making more impact. So my recommendation is always like, because we all wear different hats. I wear different hats whenever I work with the clients too. Just not a communication aspect, but also like, strategic planning, donors, like engagement and things like that. So, but really focus on knowing your strength, who you are, communicate your value. Just like you mentioned, at the beginning, you talk about your background, where you're coming from, and then you can expand on that, right? Really hone on the storytelling aspect. I think that's where you will get a lot of people to align with your visions, and really focus on your unique value propositions. Just like you mentioned about, people don't know where to store like services like that. There are companies out there already doing, in a similar space, doing very similar thing. So how can you differentiate yourself, right? Especially in your services. Maybe you have the same services as anyone else, but that personal touch, right? Like that caring, helping people to fill out form, in different languages, spending time like that. Some company may not do that because they're so big, they just focus on the bigger pictures, right? And then there's always, if there's a need, there's the way you can supply, right? And then the services, that's where if you can find out that a lot more, like really go into in-depth information about how can you provide that value, make people life better, very specific things, that's where you can win, right? So that's my recommendations, and good luck with that too.
Thank you.
If I could just dovetail one thing off of what Minh was saying, because I think that comment around who else is doing similar work. So, you spoke to the honesty of the challenges of starting a business. And I think Lynn is right that is true of any small business. Anyone who starts a business, they wear all the hats. It's not particularly unique to a nonprofit. It is just the issue of startup. There is a moment of reflecting and looking in the community and saying, whom else is doing this? Whom else has had the experience? There's a saying in the computer coding world, which is the best piece of code is the one I don't have to write. The same thing is true, I think, of businesses, of really thinking who else is doing similar work to what you're doing, who has that experience of trying to organize a business structure around it, and what is their experience? What have they found? The last thing you want to do is to invest in trying to start something up where someone has the experience to say that kind of a model may not work. There might be a different approach. So really thinking about that, as well as a place where, just the nature of even the work that you're doing, which is so integrative. It is people being supported and understanding their dependencies on others. That's also true of our businesses, is really being able to recognize who's best positioned, who has the experience to help us understand what we're trying to do, who can even potentially guide us in a direction of where the best place is to put our talents, whether that is in a new entity or being able to take something that you have that perhaps is a unique approach in terms of the depth in which you're training people, or the way in which you're able to provide some of these navigator services, is to almost sort of put the trial balloons out there with other people in the field to just get a sense of what they're experiencing, what's and where you may fit into that. Sometimes it does require us to be independent and to form that infrastructure. Sometimes there are other avenues where we can pursue the things we really care about, and we don't have to do the things that are challenging to us on the administrative business piece. So really, I mean, this is a short way of the advice is to talk to other people who do this type of work, just to get a sense of what it's like to operate in this world, not necessarily deliver the care, because you obviously have that talent and passion and that's there.
And to add to what Justin mentioned, we're connecting with others in the community and others within the space, because there's an ecosystem here where there are a lot of other agencies or organizations, whether nonprofit, government, or other, offering similar types of services. So the question or the issue is, well, what is their business model? How are they generating revenue? And then what exact type of services are they providing? And then where is it, Zakaria, that yours fit in terms of within that ecosystem? What differentiates you and separates you from some of those others in a very clear fashion where you're going to align with your values, and then also connect with the audience that you're looking to reach and generate the revenue that's needed to be able to sustain and then to grow. So I'm basically piggybacking off of what Lynn mentioned in terms of the resources or the guidance, and then where Justin had tied into the community and how to learn or work from others, and then would add to that the business model, and to be very specific and intentional about where and how you're going to offer very targeted specific services, how that fits in with others, and then what the revenue sources are going to be and what is needed to be able to make sure that you can be sustainable and to grow over the long term. Okay. And I know with that answer, I know with that question or comment, it's much easier said than done. Yet that ties into where you've begun to develop a business plan. And I give you credit for doing that. A lot of times you have the passion and the heart and you care and you want to make an impact. And as you're developing that business plan, that's going to put you on the path where you want to go.
Okay. I agree with you. I actually feel the same when I developed the quality assurance plan. And when I was reviewing, it's like, this is like, it's really difficult comparing to just like talking about it. Yeah, I agree with you. Just take a lot of effort.
Can I just add one more comment? Oh, Lynn, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Minh.
So I think, you know, like to really build on Justin, and then in my experience too, like don't be afraid to work with other people, partner with other organizations. I'm a really big believer in, that's a good saying called like, good artists copy, great artists steal. So I'm a really big believer in finding way that other people work, and then, you know, like see them model and then really understanding how it works and then apply for yourself, right? This is where you have to really understand what you want. And then the more you expose yourself to other people in a similar field, you can start seeing like, oh, this work, this doesn't work. I like this, I don't like that. So I think really get that exposure and then really communicate who you are and what your values are with other people and ask them for help, right? Don't be afraid to, you know, hey, I partner with this person. It doesn't mean that you lose yourself or you lose your organization. You just strengthen your capability to do more things together, right? So that is something that I notice a lot of nonprofits, they just work alone on that because they think that they have to do that alone. And the reality is they don't have to, right? There's people in the community trying to help. Even there's this book, Echo Traction. So it's contraction and it's about business, but then it's something that I even have to go through it myself. And every time I go through it, it's really about building the team, your visions, how you build your processes and things like that. So if you have a chance to really like, you know, buy this book, I really highly recommend this, especially you starting out. I recommend this to all my clients. Even now, after like 3 years, I had to redo this because my vision had changed. Not the vision doesn't, you know, it's still the same vision, but like the elaborations and all the processes change. So I had to go and redo all these books. So that is how important the book is. So, you know, if you have a chance, Amazon has this as well. So I think that would be really helpful for you in terms of the business and also the nonprofit side and the services. So
wonderful. Thank you.
So, you know, I think everybody's kind of giving you the same advice that you really just need to ask others. I had a small business a number of years ago as well, for 9 years, and was reasonably successful. And one of my mentors used to say, you know, yeah, I built a successful small business and I never had an original thought. And I used to laugh because I thought she was really a creative person. But I realized that there's just a lot of good stuff out there, and most of it is, you know, it's not copyrighted. People are not going to be afraid. But one of the most powerful things I have found as an economic developer is just sort of asking people, I'm really looking for a little bit of advice. Do you mind if I just tap your brain for half an hour, for 30 minutes? Most people love to give advice and they love to talk about themselves.
Right.
And if you ask them, how did you get into, could I get an informational, how did you get into this? What did you find? And once you did, what were your hardest challenges and how did you overcome them? What do you think is the most important thing to know when building a business that works with this population? Those kind of things. I think people, trust me, they will be so willing to talk to you. I've often talked to entrepreneurs and they're, oh, well, people don't want to tell their secrets. I don't want to tell my secret. Well, there's no secret. And people are very willing to share. And I, said earlier, your particular space is one that is so underserved that I think the vast majority of organizations, both profit and nonprofit, that are working in this space would be thrilled to have somebody else in this space as well. We just know that there's just not enough. There just aren't enough people serving this population. So I don't think you should be afraid of that. In some ways, you've spent 1.5 years on licensing, and I would not. But right now, I hope you realize that maybe if that license came tomorrow, would you be ready to start up?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
After this conversation, you think you're ready to get started?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm going to ask you then, how are you going to make money? You haven't yet told any of us how you're going to make money. And you have to make money because you got to pay yourself.
Yeah. So all the services are funding through the DDA, which is Medicaid. There's a federal programs that they will send us the fund. We do billing monthly for non-residential and every 3 months for residential. I don't have residential, so I'm starting with non-residential. So if we have any client that I do have enough fund to support me, it's actually personal saving, put it in the business to help me for the first 2 months until I receive the billing. So if there is a client ready, and if I get my license, I'm ready to serve. I do have a number of people that I work with through the years in different agencies. I have them like ready once we have that started. Once we have the license, they're ready to support me and to help. It's incorporated. Is not me. It's closely incorporated because I am the one who's like hands-on and everything. But I do have participants. I do have people on the board of director and the standing committee. They are helping me as well. Yeah.
Very good. You didn't tell us that before. That's brilliant. Okay, so you have a group of people who are on a board. You have a group of people who are helping you to put some of this together. Who are they? Or either who are they or what kind of roles do they fill? Tell us about them.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you'd say they are friends and co-workers, but we did have a close relationship. They knew that what I used to criticize things about agencies, and when I speak with the consultant, even when I did my work with consulting about how to do this business, she told me that about these concerns that's been going on for years, and to fix them, that once you start, you can set that as an example. There is a lot of rules that's being banned. There's a lot of regulations that being banned, and people not working or not complying with it. And there's not enough supervisory from the state on how to operate this program. There's a lot of things going on. So this way, I want to set up an example. I want to have like a high quality agency where it can be an example on how to provide these services. That's the standards. This is a high standard, but I have to stand. I have to do it that way.
Okay, and that's another. I'm channeling you, Justin.
Yeah.
Fundamental value. This is a fundamental value of high standards and adhering to the rules fully. And you have to be careful in your marketing because you can't imply that somebody else is not, because they'll slap you with a lawsuit like this. But you can talk about your own values and complying with them fully. So I think that's a very important thing. So you're saying, so you've got some money in a bank account that you think you could run for 2 months until
Right.
money comes in from the federal or the state agencies.
Yeah, it's coming from a DDA. So, but that's the originally where the money coming from. But the
Okay.
DDA who funding us, this is one way. But the percentage of how much they're funding and how much the program will cost and the services, it's always you are behind. It's always like you're not fulfilling all the needs. You know, that's why like you need a plan for fundraising.
Okay.
The fundraising is very important here. If I don't have funding and the only person me, it's just is going to be the money's not going to be enough. We're always going to be shortage. We're not going to be able to have like a high quality services. It's always like behind.
Okay, so you have at least 2 different streams of funding, one which is service based and one which is going to be donation based. And there are others here who are probably better on the donations based side than I am, but I think you need to think about them both as clients. So again, I can let other people talk about it, but to me, do you know who those foundations, who those nonprofit supporters are, and how to approach them?
No.
It sounds like you know how to get the clients, best I can tell.
Yeah, but the fundraising, no, I don't have. My knowledge is close to zero.
Go, Justin.
So I think one of the pieces that you just raised is your own understanding of where the governmental funding models fall short. And so, and this actually loops back to something you talked about, which is the evaluation of the day-to-day and understanding that. If you leveraging that understanding and being able to tell that story, and again, you have a very personal story around what it really takes for people and families and friends to thrive in a situation where someone is experiencing a disability, and sort of all of the players involved. And your ability to tell the story about what it really takes, what's really involved in that, so that then you can tell the story of where the government reimbursement is short, because it may only provide, one, it may not be enough financially, or two, it might not even pay for the types of services that actually are needed. And that's not an uncommon scenario where the government says, well, we'll pay for this and these kinds of services, but we won't pay for these. And you, as the person who's actually doing the work, understands, well, they also need this and they also need this. That ability to be able to acknowledge what it really takes for people to thrive in that situation is not only the basis for how you have to design your organization, because you have to deliver those, but it also is, again, part of the story that you're telling of why there may be a financial gap, or why an additional financial investment, or why you may need support by other assets. Because that's another thing when we think about what it really takes, that question is not how much it costs, but it's actually the day-to-day stuff that you're talking about, the actual, I use the term assets. What are the actual things or processes or relationships that have to exist? Where do those already exist? Who has them? And what would encourage them to coalesce in partnership with you? So it's not even them giving it to us. It's not even them giving us some money, but it's this idea of what does it take? Where does it exist? And much like you're talking about being a navigator for an individual, you're actually talking about being a navigator for others who have the resources too, helping them understand how to put them to work.
And Zakaria, I want to build on what Justin mentioned. I love your confidence in the sense of when you start on day one and you have the licensing approvals that you're ready to go, you're ready to run, and you're ready to make it work. Love to see that confidence. And then I'm convinced that you do have the capabilities on the delivery of services. There, that came through just in terms of how you explain things, the way you started to describe, and just the smile that would light up in your face in terms of making a difference and helping those in need. And then when it comes to the funding from VDA, that seems where you're beginning to navigate or figure that out, and also seeing some of the roadblocks where from the government, it's probably not going to provide the full reimbursement, the needed funds that are going to be required for you to be successful. So the real question to me is less about your being able to provide those services. The real question is how, in addition to government funds, where is the revenue going to come from? Who on your board or in your network or in meeting with others is going to be able to help you to make sure that you have the funding so that in addition to that government support, you can thrive and you can be successful. Because in most cases, either it's a deep knowledge of government funding and what and where and how you can be reimbursed. Because as you know, with many of the different services, there are a lot of nuances, a lot of compliance, a lot of requirements. Sometimes maybe it does meet that, sometimes it doesn't. So where and how will this business model be structured in such a way that the funding is going to enable you to bring on staff, enable you to grow, enable you to begin to offer specific services that align with your values and help you expand and grow, because often getting off the ground and then expanding and growing, that's a second and third level issue to deal with. Yet it's a key issue when it comes to making sure that the funding is there.
I totally agree with you.
And I would say that sustainability for you is ultra important in ways that frankly it might not be for other organizations. Because once you get started, you have people who are depending on you. These clients, I mean, you know this, you've done it. You know how much they depend on you. If you go out of business in just a few months, they kind of return to a pretty awful place.
Yeah.
So I think you know this. I would say that ironing out some of the things that Louis just talked about, figuring out where the extra money is going to come from, lining up people who can help lead, find it. If your people, we haven't talked about who's on your board. If the people on your board cannot lead you to money, then you need to get some other people on your board. There should be people on your board who can help you with the legal, who can help you with the accounting, who can help you with the fundraising, who can help you with the governance. They're really, not just, and certainly people, it's always good to have people on your board who can help you with the industry itself, because you want to check there, even though you know it well. But I think a mistake that a lot of entrepreneurs make is not realizing that one of the fundamental purposes of a board is to help you get money. Especially a nonprofit board. And that might mean delaying some things for a little while, just to make sure that you've really got that in place, because it is very, very hard for new businesses to get loans. It's very hard for the new businesses to get grants. When did you get your IRS determination letter?
February 21.
Okay, so that's good. It's those of you who are nonprofit experts, doesn't it take a little while before folks start feeling really comfortable funding organizations? Don't they need to be a certain age before people and foundations start feeling comfortable? So, just think about that a little bit. So you may have to live with that. You're probably going to have to live with being poor for a while. But you want to be in as stable a position as you can get once you start, because of the unique and extraordinary nature of your business.
Can I just add one thing to piggyback on Lynn? I don't want to suck up all of your time, and I know you only have 10 minutes left, but government and philanthropy usually don't want to be the first funders or the only funders. And it is important to have a diverse funding base so that if the bottom falls out of one, you have another base. And I remember when I first came into Nonprofit Village, and 95% of the funding was from one government source. And it took me 3 years to move that, to reduce that source to 25%, and then scale up on corporate and philanthropic and individual donors, and really diversify that. But yeah, you want that diverse funding stream. I'll remind you, you have about 8 minutes left.
I agree with Lam about having someone in the board that to have that experience. So I do have one person on the board, and I asked them that question: how you survive, like especially at the beginning. And it just like figure out that she has another agency, which is she fund her PDA provider agency from her other agency. So I don't have that privilege. So that's was like aiming for some help from donation to help me, especially with the few years, because as you say, it's really difficult even to apply to grant right now. Because if I'm looking at the past year, I was doing my tax just last week, my revenue is zero. I have not provided no service. I've not made no money. This revenue is zero. So it's going to be difficult at the beginning. If there's any advice or recommendations, you can give, please.
Zakaria, I'll offer a few and give you a lot of credit for asking those types of questions. One is, what are the other organizations who are in your space? How are they generating revenue? What are they doing outside of government support, or within government support? Are they navigating through different agencies? We'd definitely take a look at what they're doing and how they have grown. And when I say how they've grown, when they were in your position, what did they do? How did they approach it? And Lynn mentioned earlier, reaching out to others and asking them for guidance and asking them for advice, because they're likely to be, they have walked in your shoes, they've been in your situation, and more often than not, they're willing to provide you with specific guidance. I don't know specifically which path to take. I don't think any of us do, yet evaluating those different revenue sources is critical. And Lynn had touched on the board and where and how they can add value. That's also very critical. You touched on where you have the board in place. The question is where and how they can offer value, because my sense in most organizations, the board has skills and knowledge when it comes to the services. Yet when it comes to the business operations and the fundraising and the marketing and other areas, that's where a lot more difficult. That's where it becomes a lot more difficult in the context of making sure that the board members or others in your network are able to assist and provide guidance. And as we're starting to wrap up, we'd like to mention that the SOAR program, which Kim at Nonprofit Village had developed, is something we recommend that you definitely consider and take a look at.
Sure. How can I have access to that program?
So the application.
I'll forward information.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And again, I would talk to the Small Business Development Center. I would absolutely go to the new Small Business Hub for Disabilities that we talked about, the disabilitysmallbusiness.org hub. Absolutely, I mean, tons of resources there that really are designed for people, like I said, entrepreneurs that are like you and who are working with this population or who are in that population and starting businesses. So I think that those can help you. There's a world of business information. And my last piece is always remember that even though you're a nonprofit, you're still a business. Nonprofit is a tax status, not a business model. And you always need to, when you hear people say, well, this is for businesses, well, that includes you too. Okay. And when they talk about revenue and profit, that includes you too. All those things do apply to nonprofit because you got to pay your people. And I heard early on that you want to be doing that. You want to be hiring. It sounds like you've got some people who want to work for you. Kudos, kudos, kudos. That's really exciting, especially right now when it's so tight to find people. but you're going to have to pay them, and you're going to have to pay them benefits. So, so all those businessy things apply, but you can learn them. You can learn them.
Thank you for touching on that, because actually that's one of the maybe the biggest problem, that there's no enough fund to pay the staff fairly. People go there working with individual with disability, tolerating behavior. There's a lot of medical need. There's sometimes they have back issue because they have lifted individuals. So they get in the minimum wages, but you can't pay them more than that because the fund is not enough. So the fundraising will help with that, which is increase the quality, and the staff will be happier, which is you have low turnover. So a lot of people leave this field. They come work for a few months and they leave because of the pay is too rate. We can't compete. So I mean, I respect all the job, but McDonald's job or maybe some other like retail may be much easier work, and they get paid higher than our field. That's the fundraising that would be used for that purposes.
I have a person who might actually be helpful to you, and it's his name is Tom Najjar, and he actually runs a caregiving organization for seniors, and it's a large one. I'm looking for it, but this is I've had these conversations with him, and he had. It's called Care Plus Home Health Inc. I can try to get you the information. I can ask him whether he'd be willing to talk to you, but I found him to be a generous person. So it's not quite what you do, but it's kind of what you do, right? It's just for a different population. So that's why I think he might be willing to talk to you. And a big piece of his business model was, how do I pay my people so they stay? And you know darn well that also hard to get enough money from the sources to cover what you do. I think he might be a good mentor, or at least somebody to talk to about, how did I get it going, so that, and the company's been around for years. So let me see if I can make that connection for you. All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now his is a for-profit, so it is a little bit different, but that's okay. All the things apply.
We only have about a minute left. Is there anything else that's burning that any of the panelists want to share, or Zakaria, you have questions about?
There's no one. I just want to say thank you, to Kim and to everyone. Just really appreciate it that you guys listening and willing to help. I mean, this is very informative to me. I always consider myself I know a little bit about this field. There's a lot of things to discover. There's a lot of things to learn, and I definitely just want to be continuing going through these meetings whenever they occur, because I really want to learn more, and I will also provide you guys feedback. I really appreciate it. You're probably not going to meet a client that I'm going to serve, but you're going to be part of having impact on them. So I just want to really appreciate your help.
So we have more resources for you. We will get you a copy of the recording. If anybody has anything else that they want to share, we'll get it over to you. Lily can send that to you in the notes. And we'll also be continuing with you from the Nonprofit Village side on a little bit of navigation. So, we'll make sure that you're connected to an expert, either from this panel or someone else, so that you still have a little bit more time if you need to kind of dive deeper. Yeah, there'll be other resources, and then we'll talk to you about what's available through the Nonprofit Village for you over the coming months. Okay, I'll make sure to add you to the information that we send out for the SOAR program also.